the sky is over. Even though we can't afford the sky is over. I don't wanna see.
What's up, you guys? GagexScapegoat here. For those that don't know me, I'm a YouTuber that does deck profiles. I do rants and I do discussions such as the one you were about to see today. The reason why I say that, this video is also going to be going up on my brother SlimX team, whatever he calls himself now's channel. No, this is going to be going up on Slim's channel, so thank you very much as always, Slim. I'm very appreciative. So, anyways, today we're doing a little bit of a discussion talking about 60-card decks as opposed to 40-card decks and why I feel that there are pretty good arguments you can make for both sides. So here's the thing. I think everybody can... I think everybody knows the whole 60-card craze by now. There's 60-card Zodiac, 60-card Infernoid. You know, the grass is greener decks are quite prevalent right now. You know, the only reason they're not prevalent in the OCG is because, you know, Macro is still at 3. Macro, I miss you. You should be at 3. Whatever. So anyways... grass is greener decks, you know, the whole 60-card craze, you know, like it's become more of a trend than anything, you know what I mean? Which is weird for me because, like, you know, my friend Paul Blake, I mean, he was playing 60-card Fire Fist, like, you know, 3 years ago, and everybody called him crazy for it, so. But it's funny to kind of see this surface finally. Like, Konami has always done a good bit in their power to make sure that everything they release is in some way, shape, or form playable. You know, they made fusions. They made fusions one of the best things in Yu-Gi-Oh! With the whole hero archetype. You know, I mean, like they have to make a lot of what they sell playable. So, what they've done with like some of these new. We'll say some of these new deck cores, we can say, because you can throw Invoked and Wind Witch together and then put, like, artifacts in there, let's say, and then back it up with, like, let's say a couple copies of D-Barrier and then Triple Strike Warning and just make it kind of an anti-Zodiac deck if you want to. So what they've done is they made grasses greener, and it's basically turned a lot of these graveyard decks that maybe didn't have the consistency that they needed into serious contenders. So, with that said, though, we've seen a lot of decks surface that, let's say, aren't grasses greener decks. You know, the 60-card Zodiac. I mean, granted, there's 60-card Zodiac, like Infernoid, I believe it is. You know, along with some Kaiju and all that stuff. Although it's Kaiju, not Kaiju, Slim. So, they've definitely made their mark so far. So what I'm here to talk to you about is why, like, the pros and cons to both of them. So obviously, if you're like looking at this right now, looking at the screen cap I have right now, this is a somewhat standard barrier statue deck. Yes, I understand. I play Scolding in here. I actually really like Scolding, but that's because my deck is a little bit more reliant on the continuous cards. That's why you see Sword, Moon Mirror, Mage Power, all sorts of stuff, and so you can set up. Play a bunch of continuous stuff and then have like a Scolding and a Bribe down. So you can have obviously you bribe the first thing and then, you know, if they have some kind of backup plan, you Scolding it. So anyways, I understand that this isn't the most, like some people say this isn't the most optimal build. I happen to really like it, but we're not here to talk about deck builds. So what you're seeing is a barrier statue deck. Simple, it's 40 cards. So you got the 3 Duality, the 3 Demise, and the Upstart. You know what I mean? It makes so you get simple draw power to get into your 7 monsters. So I happen to really like the build currently. You could easily change these out for dark barrier statues. I can completely understand that, but what I've been seeing though is, like, here's the thing: when it comes to certain lists, to me you can't go over 40 cards because there's not enough support for such an archetype. You know, like let's say with Zodiac, you have your Zodiac engine, but you can't play like 60-card pure Zodiac. You have to throw other cards in there because there's not enough to support it. So a lot of times people just stick to the 40-card rule, or maybe 41, 42, depending on what your preference is, you know, and just making it so that you have a very linear deck. Like, that's why a lot of people love triple Upstart Goblins, because they made it the most, like, linear, you know, focus your strategy on a certain aspect and continue with that. So with 40 cards, you know, it's something that's been around forever, the whole 40-card rule. But that said, though, that does not mean it's the only way to make your deck playable. That said, I have I call it chess piece stun. That's what I call barrier statues. I have 60-card barrier statues. Does it work as optimally as, let's say, 40-card barrier statues? In some ways, yes. In some ways, no. It makes it so that you have more of a chance to play more. Like, you have a chance to play different types of cards in here. You know, I made room for White Veil in this deck. You know, you can say, oh, Moon Mirror Shield's not that great right now, that Mage Power is just better. I completely understand that point of view. But, like, if you want to make it so that you can play cards like Scolding's not in here right now, but I'm probably going to try and make room for it at some point, because Scolding, in my opinion, is just really good. Even if you have, like, worst case scenario, if you have Dress down and Bribe down, and then you said Scolding, it's okay, because Dress and Bribe are live before the Scolding, and your Scolding is, it's a pretty blanket answer to a lot of stuff. So this is 60 card barrier statues. In some ways yes, in some ways no, as it is optimal, let's say, as 40 card barrier statues. Like I said, it gives you the opportunity to play more, play cards that you wouldn't see quite as often. You know, you can play Curse Seal as 3 more copies of Bribe, essentially. You know, you play more Mirror Forces in here. You know, it makes it so that you're not just playing, like, with the same linear cards. You know, so, like, in the barrier statue deck that I mentioned earlier, I don't have Dark Hole and Raigeki in the main deck just because I feel that, like, if you open up, like, 2 statues plus a Dark Hole, it's a really, really bad opening for you. So I found that just kind of keeping those in the side deck and just kind of preparing for Zodiac in your own way. You know, the My Body is a Swag is an amazing card right now. Triple Forbidden Dress is really good, obviously. You know, you have these different... And, yeah, I'm testing Psychic Blade right now. I'm not saying I would recommend this card. I'm just trying it out right now. But, yeah, if you notice, it's a more linear deck list. It focuses its strategy more on stopping destruction, let's say. You know, it doesn't have Lances in the main deck because I play so many continuous cards. So, it does have its weaknesses, whereas with 60 card statues, let's say, you have the chance to play other types of cards and make the deck, let's say, a little bit more versatile. Yes, I understand the extra 20 cards, it makes sure you're not going to see those same consistent openings you would with 40 cards, but if you want to make your deck more versatile, or maybe you want to add a second engine into it, that is definitely an option. That said, though, we're going to go up here. 60 card Floodgate, as I call it, which is just a deck I built for fun. I wouldn't actually recommend trying... maybe try your own variant of it. I mean, it is a fun deck to play, but this isn't like, let's say, the most optimal. But it is something you can do, though, because you play a barrier statue engine, and then you could, well, these could also be Jougans, but anyways. Then you can play triple Banisher of the Radiance, double Banisher of the Light. Yes, I know a lot of people don't like Banisher of the Light. I happen to really like the card. You play different engines into it and basically make it so that it's a hybrid, where it can support a barrier statue engine, and then it has a big attack monster like Banisher of the Radiance. With like a Banisher of the Radiance and like double Phantom Knight Sword, it's going to be really tough for your opponent to answer that if they don't have, like, let's say, a Blue Eyes alternate, for instance. But what I'm saying with all of this is that 60 card decks as opposed to 40 card decks, I believe that a 60 card deck in a lot of cases can actually make your deck more versatile, as opposed to a 40 card deck where your strategy in a lot of cases, because you're trying to stick to 40 cards and not go above it, I believe that it kind of makes it so you have to limit your strategy and limit your options in a lot of cases. You know, and that brings me to my other deck, which is 60 card Stun. 60 card Stun is definitely feasible. This is a 60 card Stun deck that actually does do pretty well. I've been testing it for a little bit. Just a couple days now, so I'm not going to sit here and say that it's the best option by any means, but it's definitely worked pretty well. I've been able to beat Zodiac with it. I beat Blue Eyes with it not too long ago. You know, it does have its good moments, absolutely. You know, if you take your general idea, like, okay, you got the 3 Dynas, that's it's probably the best anti-meta card in the game right now, is Fossil Dyna. You got triple Myrmilio to thin the deck out. It's a nice 1600 beater if you're able to get over your opponent's stuff. You know, like, let's say Zodiac or whatever, if you want to pop a Myrmilio, that's totally cool. You know, like, it did its purpose, you know, and it makes it so you can't pop one. It makes it so you have one less ability to pop. The Thunder Kings are good, especially if you're going first. The Rabbits and the Thunderbirds, I actually think, are very underrated right now. I think, in general, you have different options, like, let's say, Chain Beat. If you have general Chain Beat with no Gardens in it, I feel that it actually has a pretty good shot at playing against Zodiacs, because they're not going to be able to dry dent any of your stuff. Thunderbird comes back in 1950, which they're going to have to kind of play around in order to get over. If they try to Castell it, obviously, you just chain Thunderbird and bring it back next standby phase. And also with Wicked Witch, I actually think Wicked Witch is one of the better anti-meta cards, like, in the game, just because it's so difficult to get rid of in a lot of cases. Because, again, you pay 1,000, stays on the field. Pay 1,000, stays on the field. Pay 1,000, stays on the field. Back at Nationals in 2016, I was able to use that with Kaiser Coliseum and other cards, and I made my own deck called Wicked Witch Stun. You can ask Slim about that. It was hilarious. But what I'm saying with all of this is that it makes it so you can make it so your deck is not as linear. It has more elements to it. You know, it has this chain beat, I'm going to have constant field presence element to it, which actually does a good bit against Zodiacs, because a lot of times, like, let's say if they're playing Kaiju in their deck, which they usually are, you know, the Rabbits and the Thunderbirds make it so that's not nearly as much of a threat. The Dynas make it so that's not as nearly as much of a threat, and also these are all good standalone monsters. You know, you can make an argument, oh, Myrmilia is just a vanilla monster, you know, after it searches a trap hole, and that's definitely true. But at the same token, though, if you just go first turn Myrmilia set 5, it's definitely going to be intimidating for your opponent to go up against. So the Necro Valleys, they're just good. The new Rata obviously makes it broken. Which usually you're not going to have, if you're trying to play more of just an anti-meta or just a pure stun deck or whatever, you're not going to have room, obviously, for all of this. You're probably going to limit it down to, like, Dynas, Murmilios, and, like, Thunder Kings or Wicked Witches or whatever your Banishers, whatever your preference is. And so if you're doing that, then you're going to have your Dualities, Demises, Upstart, maybe fit in like 2 Pot of Desires, and then you play a basic trap lineup, and that's really going to be your 40 cards. Whereas with this, you have different elements you can all throw into the deck. As long as they work at least somewhat in synergy with each other, I feel that that's actually a pretty strong option. You have your summon limits. You have your lose a turns for whenever you don't have cards like Dyna in play. You have your Floodgate Trapples. You have your 6 Mirror Forces so that your 6 Mirror Forces can protect if you have a Dyna or a Thunder King that you're trying to keep in play, or if you just want to clear the field so your Rabbits and Thunderbirds can start hitting directly. You have your Strikes. You have your Bribes. You have your Starlights. You have your Bribes and Starlights as just basic negation for something that your opponent wants to throw at you, primarily Twin Twister, obviously. You have your Strikes, obviously. Your Strikes and Warning, which are just basic stun stuff. Your Compulse and your Torrential. Your Triple Reckless is actually, I think, is pretty good. If you want to play a stun deck and try Triple Reckless along with Demise, Duality, and Upstart, I would definitely give it a shot. It definitely makes it so that but again, that makes your deck. That's 3 more slots, though. So your deck is in a lot of cases going to be a little bit more linear, which is good in some cases. It's good in some cases where, like, let's say my Wicked Witch stun deck from Nats 2016. Let's let it load here. This is my Wicked Witch stun deck card for card from Nationals last year. This is built specifically to beat Cosmo, Monarch, BA, and PK Fire. So you have your Kaiser Coliseum. Your Kaiser Coliseum plus Wicked Witch plus a couple of back row. It really, really hurt a lot of the meta back then. Obviously, you couldn't Stormforth with Monarchs. You couldn't Summon 2 with Burning Abyss. It just hurt a lot of the meta. So if you go with that, this is more of it's trying to be as versatile of a deck list as you can with 40 cards. So with a 60-card deck, though, if I wanted to expand this, you could play other elements. You could play Triple Dyna. You could play Triple Banisher if you wanted to, instead of Dyna, because it worked better against Burning Abyss. It makes it so that you don't have to have as linear of a strategy. With this deck, it was strictly basically a field control deck. So you have, you're setting your bunch of back row. You got your Triple Reckless in here, which makes so you keep up with your opponent in case they draw the nuts or whatever. Your Demise, your Recklesses makes it so that you're, in a lot of cases, going to be ahead in cards versus your opponent. You have those different ways of making your deck more versatile, but at the same time keeping it at 40 cards. But in my opinion, if you keep it at a 60 card, but if you extend it to a 60 card deck, in a lot of cases you're going to be able to add more elements to it. It makes it so that your deck, like, oh no, I can't draw this one monster, then I lose. Well, it makes it so that if you have those extra cards in there, if you don't have to worry about, let's say, compressing your deck into a 40 card list, it makes it so that you have more options, and that's very important. This is a deck I also built. I'm not going to recommend this to anybody. It's actually not too bad. With the before the new rules come into effect. This is, let's see, Invoked Shadow, Zodiac, Speedroid, Wind Witch, Dark Law, Anti-Meta. That is what I built. I understand it's a very awkward deck. I totally understand that. But my point in doing this, my point in building something like this, was to see how many engines I could fit together that worked simultaneously, and the fact that 60 cards shows that your deck can, in a lot of cases, be more versatile or have more options at its disposal. You could go first, open, like, let's say, Terror Top, go Takum Tomborg, overlay, and throw down either Invoker and try to go into your Zodiac plays. You could go Totem Bird, special something else, and then Tribute Summon for Vanity's Fiend, or just normal summon a Fossil Dyna. If, let's say, you open that, you go, like, Vanity's Fiend, Totem Bird, and, like, set a D-Barrier or a Scolding. Like, that's going to be tough for your opponent to get around in a lot of cases. So, and then in another case, if you open Ice Spell, it's literally a 1-card Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon. So if you open Ice Spell, and then you still have other options, like let's say you can even normal summon your Terror Top if you want to. You can normal summon your Rapier on top of that, and then have a Dryden and a Crystal Wing for your opponent to play around. And then if you set, again, like let's say a Scolding, I can't help Scolding I think is fantastic. So you have, like, let's say a Dryden and a Crystal Wing, and that's only 2 cards. You can still have other options. You could go Dryden. I had to play something along these lines. I don't remember exactly what it was. I wasn't playing by the new rules yet. But where you could have a Crystal Wing, Trident, I don't remember the exact combination, but it ended with a Winda, and then had like a Scolding by turn 2 or something like that. it makes it so that, again, the same idea that I've been saying, since this video started, which is that the more cards you can add, the more versatile your deck is. The more versatile your deck is, the more plays it has. The more plays it has, the less likely it is to be shut down by one specific aspect, which, in my opinion, is it definitely helps out in a lot of these other decks. So, I think, all in all, I think a lot of people are kind of confused by the whole 60 card thing, and they think that 40 cards is just much better. But I would definitely recommend at least trying it out with whatever deck you may be trying right now. I'm not going to say go play 60 card counter fairies. That's probably not a good idea. But I think with some of these decks, like I've seen, Invoked Shadows, I've seen Invoked Zodiac Infernoid, I've seen these different variants right now, and I actually think that's a good sign with Yu-Gi-Oh! Is that it shows there's more creativity on display, which I'm a fan of. I play almost nothing but anti-meta. So, hopefully you guys enjoyed this. It's a little bit of a different discussion, so that's it. If you guys want to see more content from me, be sure to go to my channel. I'm sure Slim will have it linked. Thank you again very much, Slim, for the upload. And for my audience, hopefully you enjoyed it. Leave any comments you make, or leave any comments about any kind of decks you might make that are 60 cards. And, yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Peace.